So what I was saying it here, from now two class which is left for today and tomorrow, what we are going to cover it. So we are going to cover first thing is like today we are going to set up and see the demo architecture, which means everything how you're going to design it, that architecture, right? And what are the steps you're going to place it there and how you're going to configure them, and then how also you're going to manage it to that. So that demo architecture which I was talking about, it's the same architecture which I also implemented in one of my organizations. So it's not like something, it's just the demo. It's the real world scenario, you can say, right? In the real world scenarios, I implemented the same architecture, and which includes most of the component which we talked about. Like it's included a traffic manager, it's included an app gateway, it's included a DNS zone, it's also included at our firewall, VNet, subnet, NSG, right? UDR, which means user defined route, and what else is there? Peering, right? And and diverting the traffic to the firewall, virtual machines, right? VM, workload configuration, right? All that specs. I try to put most of the stuffs in one demo architecture, right? So that you guys also get that real world scenarios, how the things are going to be worked when you have that real world organization, right? And also how you're going to manage them, right? So that's the one thing we are going to cover, right? Later on, we are second thing which we are going to cover for today and tomorrow is interview questions, right? Some of the interviews which I faced, right, during my, uh, I mean, when I was like giving the interview for that one. So that, I mean, my own questions which I figure out, I given so many interviews for that. And then also scenario-based questions we are going to cover. Scenario-based, I mean, it's a real-world scenarios questions. How, if you're appearing for that security and network engineers, right, what questions can be expected, or what stuffs you need to improve in yourself so you can appear in that interview. So that we are going to cover that also. Interviews question scenario based and uh, 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 theoretical based, which needs to be answered there. And that also includes that will be majorly focused on AZ700, which means design and implementation of the network technologies, and then AZ500, which means which means security, providing that security. One second, providing the securities to your organization as an Azure security engineer. So two requirement, demo architecture, interviews question scenario based. Third thing is uh, we are going to cover also some of the things which you needed and which I think it's like you guys will be needing it when you will be managing that architecture. So that is KQL query, which is custom query language. Don't worry about that. If you're not aware about that KQL, it's not that difficult, right? And I'll share you some of the queries. If you'll find out that you, I mean, things is going to be easier for them, right? So I have uh, did some analysis and figure out that queries which will be needing it most, right? So for the KQL query, most of the times you guys will be working on that app gateway, firewall, and then some other logs which you need to get it there. Why I'm saying KQL query? Because this Azure do not provide you a beautiful dashboard, right? Like what happened in firewall or what happened in some other, uh, uh, I mean, NetFlow and all that, right? You get that entire good GUI based monitoring and the logging of that, right? But here, if you figure out, right, you first thing is if you're capturing the logs, capturing of the logs is one thing. If you're capturing the log, right, then you need to figure out the details. You need to get the details from the logs and how you're going to get the log. Let's say, for example, I'm saying is this is my source, this is my destination, and I want the logs on port 443. Like what happened in Palo Alto and Checkpoint and other firewalls, and even in the network device also. You just go in a monitor tab, like in Palo Alto I was talking about, go in a monitor tab, put the source IP, put the destination, put the filter there, destination IP, and put the port, and you'll get that. In the monitoring tab, you'll get that every details there, right? But this is not the case in Azure. I mean, either you can configure the third-party tool for the monitoring, like uh, Datadog is there, right? Prometheus and Grafana and all the things are there, right? You can do that, But within that inbuilt solution that Azure provide, you will not be going to get that GUI base. So how you're going to get details like the same details which I needed? You need to run that KQL queries, right? And that KQL queries will going to fetch out the details and going to provide you details. So don't worry. This again is going to be another, uh, I mean, things which you need to learn. But if you're not aware about that, you're not sure about that, what you can do, you can, I'll provide you some KQL queries, and that will be enough. And you can customize that. You can work on that with KQL queries. Okay. So after moving to the KQL queries, PowerShell command is also something which I can share with you. That PowerShell command, which you can use it for day-to-day environment, right? Like if I'm being a network engineer or if I'm being a security engineer, right? What steps is needed for me for managing my infrastructure? So KQL is the most important steps. And then if you do not have that portal access, let's say organization do not give you the portal access due to security in some other aspect, right? Then how you can manage it? Right? PowerShell is there. Other things are also there, like Terraform is there, and then uh, uh, then other aspects is also there. Like, but PowerShell command, I'm going to share you, which you are going to work it, which will be notifying how you're going to use in day-to-day scenarios, right? And then later on, in the final few minutes, we are going to have that Q&A. If guys have any questions, anything, you will be going to ask it there. So that's the agenda. That's the steps we are going to cover it today. Demo, demo architecture, interview scenario based, right? Based on the 700, 500 KQL queries with that PowerShell command also, and then lastly Q&A. So that's what we are going to do in last two session, which we are going through, and then we'll be wrapping out this class. Now, I think agenda is clear for everybody. Now let's go to that first thing. So I prepared a architecture, right? Let me show you that I prepared a architecture and let me explain that. So this is my demo architecture, right, which I prepared. Let me explain this demo architecture, what is happening it here. I prepared that flow and everything is there, right? Now what happened? This thing, right, which you are saying it here, the box. Okay, let's come from top to there. First thing is, this person is just sitting here, right? Let's say this is my user. This user, my application is, for an example, I'm building an application. I can call my application is like uh, anything, but let me call it as, I'll be calling it as a multi-ops-hub.com. Okay, this is like just a uh, I taken a fictitious name, which is like not in a real word, but I just opted this name as it here. So this is my URL of my application. Any user who's going to try to use that, so what they'll be doing it, they'll be opening their browser and they'll be putting it like moti ops hub.com, right? This is like just a fictitious name. I've taken it there. Now, what happened after that? This user is taking it here. Here I use the traffic manager. We all know this traffic manager will going to provide you a DNS based load balancing to us, right? DNS load balancer. So this person will, so since I only have one architecture, I'm not going to prepare the DR. With this architecture, you can do it. So anything I can put it there. So it will be asking it, hey, I need to get the details of this thing. I need to get that IP address of this stuff, right? So how are you going to provide it there? Let's say if there will be another DR reason, the same replication of this one. Okay? Forget about that. This is the entire DR reason, and this is my DC reason, right? Now, what I can do it there. I want that my entire traffic should go on this primary reason. For an example, think about that. This is in Central India. Okay, this is in Central India, and this one DR is in South India, which is not existing for me. Right now, I want you guys also need to tell me, right? I will go parallelly with both, right? So I want that this traffic manager should always send that person which is coming from India, person coming from US, UK, anywhere across the world. What they should get, they should always get that the traffic should always get this environment. Traffic should always get to this environment. So for that thing, what I can do on my traffic manager? What I can do on my traffic manager? Anybody? Right, wrong? I want this Moti ops which is there, right? Person is trying to access it from there. The traffic is The person is querying it on the traffic manager. I need to get the details of motiops.hub.com. So what configuration I can do it on my traffic manager?
Preferred method.
Exactly. I can do that. Thanks, Prakash. Uh, so what I can do it here, I'll be putting that routing method as in priority base. Routing method as in priority base. So I'll call this environment which is below as 1 and the DR as in 2. The priority of DR is in 2. Now, since this is that having the lowest the priority, higher the number, right? So I put it that lower the number, higher the priority, right? So I put it that 1. So every traffic from anywhere which is coming it there, it will always go to this environment. Now, if I need to shift my traffic to DR region, what I can do it here without minimal disturbance of my environment. I want that. Now, previously, someone said that you can put that priority base on routing method on the traffic manager so that it is going to
I
the
don't
central
have a
India.
stress with that. So.
Guys, please go on a mute if you're not speaking. Okay. Now, my next thing is I want that instead of going for the central India, I want my traffic should go to South India now. So what can I do it again on my traffic manager? What steps I need to change it out on my traffic manager?
Increase this priority to 3.
This priority, you're saying the DC region?
Yes.
Exactly. You can increase the priority of this DC region to 3. Now, this is that higher priority, right? The traffic will go to this region now. Now, look at that. Without changing, without doing so many
No,
things,
not sure
right?
it's the best. Not sure it's the best. It's the best to send to honest. Like, I mean, like me, another thing, like the ones that like you said, when you're not.
Okay. So now, without disturbing the environment and without touching too many things, right? I can do my DR activities. I can do my DR activities. Just the failover, you can stay there, right? So that changing this stuff, right? That from 3 to 2 and 2 to 1, it hardly take 20 seconds, not more than that. It hardly take 20 seconds. Now, what happened? I did my DR. Obviously, you need to have all that steps in your DR region as well, right? And the real-time application should needs to be happen. But my communication is there. I am not doing too many steps for doing my failover activities, the DCDR activities there, right? The DR drill, which we say, right? So that's only thing we can do it. And then many more steps we can do it. Now here, come back to this architecture. This user will come down to traffic manager and say, give me that URL, IP of that URL. Now traffic manager endpoint, this is my endpoint. The endpoint of that traffic manager is app gateway. This is my app gateway. App gateway public IP. App gateway public IP is my traffic manager endpoint. For an example, think about that app gateway public IP is 1.1.1.1. Okay. Now this user who's trying to reach out to, well, let's say xyz.com. I'm saying it xyz.com, not Motiops. Person is trying to reach out to that xyz.com. Now we'll get that IP as 1.1.1.1. Now traffic will come to here, right? On the traffic on this application gateway. Application gateway, what application gateway is capable of doing? Anybody? What this application gateway can do?
It's a HTTP and HTTPS traffic.
Exactly. And let's say this traffic which is coming on HTTPS. Right? Now, what all stuff this traffic manager can do, this application gateway can do?
So it has listeners.
Sorry, Venkat?
It has listeners where it can route the traffic.
Exactly. So it can take the traffic, it can route the traffic to the backend. Apart from that, also, what it can do, it can do that path-based routing and route-based routing, URL-based routing, path-based and URL-based. What I mean by that, I already covered all the steps in that uh, in my classes, but now we are summarizing it in one place. I'll just telling it what is URL based and path based here. So for think about that, you have that URL xyz.com, and then in the xyz.com you want to go in that audio, and then inside that audio you want to take out some uh, MP3, right? And then things are that like so. This is like first thing is you need to go inside that audio and then inside that MP3. So that URL based routing and path based routing, application gateway can do. No other load balancer is going to do that. The front door and application gateway. So now xyz.com is there. It's going to reach out to there. Let's say my URL is like web.xyz.com. So I'll be configuring that web.xyz.com on my application gateway. Now this web dot exactly where this web.xyz.com is configured, this is my workload VM, where is my entire actual server is running. So I'll configure that in my virtual machine there. I'll again, not too making too complicated here, I'll configure it as an IS server, right? And that IS server will have that configuration there. Now, the traffic will at the same time the traffic is reaching out to here, right? From here, application gateway taking the traffic, taking that your lookup from the traffic manager, it's reaching out to the app gateway, and then app gateway is sending to that my virtual machine where my workload has been configured. Now, before going to that virtual machine here, this flow, before going it to here, it's also going for that WAF lookup, which means it's going to check that policy lookup. What policy lookup? It's going to identify that OS, which is Open Web Attack, right? It's going to check all that policy which I've defined, like cross SQL injection, SQL injection, cross scripting attack, right? Access header attack, and many more. It's going to check that also, which is attached to my application gateway. This is that WAF policy. I can simply create that and attach to my app gateway, right? Now, at the same time, this app gateway is also having that DNS zone. I call that this since it's internal, I'm calling it as a private DNS zone, right? Private DNS zone, right? Now, think about that. Okay, now tell me that I configured the record here, which is web.xyz.com, web.xyz.com on this private DNS zone. Now, if this VM, please focus on my question, what I'm saying it here. I configured one record on my private DNS zone, which is here. Now, if this VM, which is internal to that ISO, wanted to get that lookup, webserver.xyz.com, which is in VNet 2. This one, this entire infrastructure, till here, it is in my VNet 1. And this one is my VNet 2. Now, I want that this VM should get the lookup of this one from this DNS zone. So what steps I need to make sure that this should be in a place, otherwise the lookup will not happen.
Peering.
What thing I need? Peering, no, peering is not there. I want this DNS zone should provide the record to this internal VM which is in VNet 2.
First of all, it's DNS query should go to the private DNS so that these
Right, for the
data
private
should be
DNS zone, right?
pointed.
But exactly, that's correct. But what I'm saying it here, the traffic, this internal VM should go to this private DNS zone, correct? That's what you're saying for the lookup. But how it's going to do that? Let's say there are 100 private DNS zone is existing. This is one in my demo environment, but let's say in real environment, you'll be seeing it 100 private DNS zone. So how this VM is going to make sure which one I need to go? Do I need to go to this one? Do I need to go this one? Do I need to go this one? Or which one I need to go? If we just focus on the stuff which I'm saying it, right, it will very easy to get the thing, what I'm saying it. And we focus that on that when we discuss there. Let me tell you that what I was saying it here. There, if you've seen that on the private DNS zone, there is an option called virtual network link. What do you need to do it there? Just link that this virtual network to this one. Now this VM will go to this private DNS zone to get the lookup. Okay. Now that's the other thing. So inbound traffic is lookup will happen from the traffic manager. Then it will reach out to app gateway. App gateway will do the analysis of WAF. It will reach out to the workload, and thus similarly the return traffic will go in that way. Any questions so far on this inbound flow so far we discussed?
Yeah, hello Sumit. So
Mhm.
like we have the on-prem infra and
Mhm.
over the on-prem infra we have this IPsec tunnel between this one and suppose we need to in my scenario in my office, so we have
Mhm.
on-premises infra and we have this VPN IPsec VPN between this cloud and they have also put this Juniper VSRX for internal traffic filtering and this
Mhm.
for internet traffic filtering they have checkpoint. So for internal
Mhm.
traffic filtering, where we can put this one, any firewall before.
Mhm.
Like, can you
Mhm.
just create one this on premises data
So
center
see,
here, the
exactly. Yeah, I'll do
the
that.
perimeter, and where we terminate this VPN, and
That will be too, I mean, that's not difficult, right? Okay, let me do that. Let me do that. So there is an on-prem. Let's say this is my on-prem environment, right? This is my on-prem environment.
yeah, we have the firewall where we have the IPsec tunnel to
Okay,
this
so you
cloud.
have that. Okay, let's say this firewall is there on the on-prem. Let's say think about that any firewall. Let's say I'm saying it Palo Alto. Okay, you have
Yes,
that Palo Alto firewall, build it. So for that Azure to be there, right? For the Azure, this VPN need to be there. So what should I place it there? What component I need to use it there from my Azure side? You said this is from the on-prem side, but I need to use one component so that Palo Alto can build that tunnel from there, right? So what steps I need to spin out there? Sujit, you can
VPN
help.
gateway.
VPN
Sorry.
gateway, I think.
Exactly. Let's say
VNet
that
gateway.
VPN. Okay. Now VPN gateway. I did that, right? Let's say I did that VPN gateway, right? Or I mean, let me just give 1 second, Sujit, because I need to first. Let me complete this architecture, then I'll come this architecture also, like in a while, so that will make more sense here, right? Now I'll
Yes,
got
yes.
your
And
question.
I
I'll come
heard
it here.
that route server also.
Right,
Route
exactly.
server also,
Right. Yeah, that's
where,
also that I'm going to tell you that, right? Route server also.
okay, okay,
Now,
no problem. Thank you.
okay. Now what happened? This inbound flow is there, right? You got this inbound, right? The outbound is also going. It's not that difficult to understand here, right? This is there. Now here, if you look at there, if you look at there, this thing, the box which is there, app gateway workload is in one VNet. I placed app gateway in different VNet, which means inside my workload VM. I can place it to my hub VM also, which is my firewall, which have the peering from everywhere. So what I did, this VNet 3 is acting me as an hub firewall, which means this app gateway also pair with this one peering, right? This is also in the same VNet. I mean, so this is also have the pairing. This VNet 2 is also having the pairing, right? And if I'll be spinning out any other specs, that also having the pairing. Now, look at there, 80 and 44 traffic, 80 and 44 traffic, which is coming from the internet, right? It's going from that app gateway, right? It's going for the app gateway, and the return traffic is also going the same way, right? Now, why I place the firewall here? Why I place the firewall all together in different way? Because this is going to be what my motive is here. Apart from like any traffic which is going from this VM to the outbound, any traffic which is going to the outbound from the VM should go via firewall to the internet. Let's say this VM needs to talk with this one. This one is VNet 2, right? One simple thing is I can do that pairing and make them everybody's they can talk with each other, but that's not going to be happen in the real world scenario. Every traffic should go via firewall. So here what I'm doing it here to have that communication from this VM to this VM, which do not have that pairing from the VNet 1 and the VNet 2. They have that pairing from VNet 3, VNet 1 pairing to VNet 3, VNet 2 pairing to VNet 3. Now to reach out internal VM to the workload VM or workload VM to the internal VM, they are first going to that firewall. I have that UDR in place. Firewall is looking at the policy lookup, and then they are following that, sending the traffic to the workload. Okay. Now, that's what like any outbound communication is happening via firewall. But why do I this? Why I do place that? I call this as a parallel deployment because this is in parallel with the firewall. App gateway is in parallel with that firewall. Now, why do I have done this, right? Any questions? I mean, can you guys tell me why I have done it? I should have simply placed that firewall here also. I mean, which means traffic can commit here and then send it here and then send it here. Or I can even place it here also. The traffic should commit here and then go it here and then go it here. But
That
why I have done
asymmetric traffic issue.
This unwanted internet traffic should not enter into the cloud environment, I think.
no, that's firewall. I mean, that's the capability of firewall, right? But what my question is there, if you look at this scenario, I just wanted to bring more focus here. Why I'm saying it is one. I taken that inbound traffic because this app gateway will only be able to take the traffic on 80 and 443. Nothing else. Let's say you are sending the traffic apart from this port, non-standardized port. It's not going to take the traffic. It's only going to take the traffic on 80 and 443. But my question is, from that VM, which is workload VM, or from my internal VM, I'm sending the traffic to my firewall. Right? And that firewall is taking the traffic to that internet or to this internal VM. But my question is there, instead of putting that firewall here, I can simply put that firewall here also, right? Or even I can put the firewall here also. So let's say the person which is coming, it can send the traffic to 443. Firewall can do that lookup, and then it can send to my load balancer, which is app gateway, and app gateway can do that listeners and backend pool, all that operation, and then send that traffic here. This is we discussed. If you just focusing more, then why I do place that firewall here?
So we'll get all kind of data in the firewall, and also asymmetric traffic will be avoided.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's correct, Prakash. So why do I place that firewall here? Because if I place the firewall here, that's what we discussed, right? Previously, if you remember, I said if you'll be placing the firewall in front of app gateway or in back of the app gateway, there will be asymmetric routing is going to be happen. Now you're going to see it now why this is going to be happen. That time I said app gateway WAF2 or standard WAF2, you cannot put the firewall, you cannot put that UDR or user defined route, you cannot put that UDR or user defined route back to that firewall. It can only tag that the UDR which you created. Let's say the UDR I created 0.0.0.0 next hop as my NVA, which is firewall IP. Next word network virtual appliance as in firewall. But this UDR is not going to work with that WAF. If you're going to attach that UDR to the app gateway subnet, it's going to deny that. There is a limitation if you remember, we talked default route should always going to point it towards the internet. Right? You guys remember that, right? Default route is always going to point out towards the internet for app gateway V2. You cannot point out that traffic to my WAF here, my my firewall here. Now, what is happening it here? I'm taking the traffic from my firewall. Firewall is doing good thing. It's sending to that app gateway. App gateway is sending to that VM here. Now, VM is sending the return traffic to that app gateway. Now, this app gateway, what I'm expecting it, app gateway should send the traffic to my firewall, right? Because this is what the flow is happening. But now, app gateway, instead of sending it to firewall, it will directly send to the internet. Why? Because you cannot place that UDR or you cannot place that user defined route on that app gateway subnet, which is pointing to the firewall. It will only take that default route towards the internet. Guys, do you get my point, what I'm saying it here? Any questions there, feel free to ask. But this is what, like, why, this is my reason why I did this parallel deployment. We call this as a parallel deployment. And this deployment is also Microsoft recommended. Parallel deployment. What I mean by parallel, at the same time, I'm also working with my WAF. At the same time, also working with my firewall. Firewall is doing that L3, L4 inspection. This is doing that L7 inspection. Right? Now, this VM, this entire architect, this entire is in VNet 1, is paid to my VNet 2, VNet 3. VNet 2 is paid to my VNet 3. Everything is going with that hub. This is my hub. Everything is getting paired with my hub. If I'll be placing any other VNet, let's say this is my VNet 4, that also will go via firewall. Either towards the internet, either from internal communication like stage to dev, dev to prod, and prod to so. This architecture is clear to you guys, right?
Yes.
Any questions on this architecture, feel free to ask.
So there is an opposite architecture which is called mesh topology, which we will have
Mesh
all
is,
peering.
yeah. Mesh is also one thing. What happened with the mesh? There are multiple architectures there, right? I'm not denying it. You cannot place that firewall. If Azure firewall is there, I can simply place that here. Azure firewall will not have that issue with that. Azure firewall, that limitation which I said, right? Azure firewall, you won't be getting it with the Azure firewall. Why? Because Azure firewall by default will do that DNAT, destination NAT. Azure firewall by default will do the destination NAT. This limitation which I am saying it here is going to be happen with next generation firewall, that third party firewall like Checkpoint, Palo Alto. And even if you're using that Azure firewall also, Microsoft recommended put that in a parallel deployment here. Now there are multiple topologies. Is there mesh topology, which someone said, right? What happened with the mesh one? This is also going to be paired with this one. This is also going to be paired with them, and then this is also going to be paired with that. So everybody is getting interconnected with this one, but this will lead to issue there, right? Because let's say what happened. I just want, like, there are multiple VMs are there inside my VNet one. I want only this person should talk to my this one, but you already did the pairing. Pairing will allow all that communication. This guy will able to reach out to this one also. This one is there also. This is also. But so what happened with this one with the mesh? There will be security concerns going to be arise. There will be security concerns,
Okay, thank you.
right? So best recommendations, and that the recommendation which I followed when I architected the diagram, always go with this parallel deployment. If you wanted to use that full capabilities, even I can place that firewall here also. Like checkpoint was there when I was managing my environment. Checkpoint was placed it here. Now what happened with this checkpoint? I'll tell you what happened with this checkpoint. And then when later, I mean, I have not done it there. When I joined that organization, I seen that checkpoint is there, right? And then when I realized that, I given this recommendation to them. Now what happened is here? Checkpoint will have some load balancer, right? Checkpoint load balancer, and that load balancer will have that public IP. Now, person is sending the traffic to the load balancer public IP. Load balancer public IP sending the traffic to the checkpoint. Checkpoint is only doing it that netting. What I mean by that, my rule was on the checkpoint firewall, anything source as in 000, which is coming from that internet, right? Going to my checkpoint external interface, destination as in checkpoint internal interface, right? External interface. Let's say that IP host checkpoint interface is 10.1.1.1, right? So that is the case. Coming on the port of, let's say, I was doing that port mapping that time. I was doing that port mapping this time. There were, so coming on the port of 443, action is allowed. Now, for that, where I was doing that netting, I written that a NAT rule. I written a NAT rule. Come out here for the NAT rule. What was my NAT rule there? NAT rule was any traffic, now same thing, any traffic which is coming it here from the internet, that NAT rule was there, external interface of checkpoint, right? Coming from internet, going to the checkpoint firewall internal face, right? NAT this IP to whom? To this app gateway private IP. App gateway, let's say private IP of app gateway 10.1.1.2. And then when I was taking that port here, I said that instead of here taking, and the port is 443, translate that port to 40443. Right? So if you look at here, what kind of security I'm providing to me here? I'm just adding a layer of device, and that layer of device, what it's doing, it's just doing the netting. It's just doing that netting, nothing else. If you look at that architecture, it's just doing that netting. What if I'm saying it from internet, automatically, let's say a malicious IP, or let's say a IP, individual IP should only get that access, or let's say a limited person should get that access. Will I be able to achieve that? No, right? Because I'm allowing everything from internet and then sending it to my checkpoint IP, and then checkpoint IP and translating it to my app gateway IP. Only thing I'm doing it here, I'm just doing my port mapping from 443 to 443, and then simple netting. So I'm not denying you, this is what architecture I was having it here. I'm not denying you to put it there. But there you're paying the cost for the checkpoint, 50K USD for a year, and then you're not utilizing it fully. You're not making them to utilize it properly for the checkpoint. Now, if you're putting the checkpoint here, you can do that. You can fully utilize them, right? You can fully utilize them. So that's what is there. Now let's come back to, this is what my architecture. Let's come back to Sujit's question. What I was saying it there. He said on-prem is there. This on-prem is there. And then on the on-prem, let's say they were using Palo Alto firewall. And from that Palo Alto firewall, now this is my hub topology. This is my hub and spoke. What is hub? This VNet 3 is hub here, right? And then these guys, which is there, is my spoke, or you can call it as a child also. This is spoke. This is also spoke, right? These two are the spoke here. Now, if I need to deploy my VPN gateway, you given my answer, right? You guys given the answer that VPN gateway you need to deploy it there. So what will be the best place to deploy that VPN gateway on Azure? What will be the best place here to deploy in this architecture? What will be the best place to deploy my VPN gateway? where exactly I can deploy it so I can utilize it properly. Because this is like, also you need to think about that, right? This is Easy 700 is also about for architecting the diagram.
It should be on hub VNet.
Exactly. It should be in a hub VNet. Exactly. Thanks for that. It should be in a hub VNet. So what I'm going to do it, I can deploy it here also, I can deploy it here also, I can deploy it here also. But why I'm saying it inside my hub VNet? Because this is my hub VNet. In the hub VNet, if anybody is coming here, right? Let's say I deployed the VPN gateway here. Now what happened? This guy on the on-prem, the Palo Alto, the tunnel from that on-prem Palo Alto is going to have that connection, is going to terminating on that VPN gateway, which is on that firewall, which is on that hub VNet, which is on that hub VNet. Now, if think about that, this person, the interesting subnet, this person is wanted to have that communication, right? Now, whether this person, anybody, right? They already have that peering. They already have that peering with the hub VNet. What I can do it here, I just need to send the traffic. Let's say the subnet of my on-prem is 172.16.0.0/20 for an example. What I need to do it here, I just need to guide this person how this person is going to reach out to this traffic, because VPN gateway is already there and it's up and it's having the interesting subnet. This is my interesting subnet here, like say 10.1.0.0/20, and this is also the guy 10.2.0.0/16 These two are my interesting subnet of my VPN, right? VPN gateway. Now, if I need to send this person, if I need to tell this person VNet to reach out to this guy, what should I be doing it here? What I need to do it here? If I need to send this person 10.1.1.1 via VPN to this guy so that this can access, or either way, right? So for that, what I need to write it down, what configuration I need it here? Anybody, right, wrong, any questions? You guys got my question, or should I repeat? Like, I mean, try
Please
to
repeat.
answer that, right? Okay, sure. So what I'm saying it here, I have my Palo Alto firewall on the on-prem side, and which is having that subnet 172.16.0.0/20, right? I deployed my VPN gateway in my hub VNet. This is my VPN gateway, which I deployed it here. Now, this VNet, which is VNet 1, this VNet, which is VNet 2, they do have the different VMs, right? Now, this VNet is having that subnet of 10.2.0.0/20. This VNet 2 is having that subnet of VNet of address range 10.1.0.0/20. Now, I want that this person 10.1.1 or 10.2.2 or both, they should talk to 172.116.0, which is on that on-prem side via VPN. So what configuration do I need to do it on this VNet 2 or this VNet VM?
Local network
But-
gateway.
First of
Or
all, that
the-
gateway should be pointed to firewall. Okay. And
Gateway, sorry. Gateway to V?
firewall.
This-
VM2, INET
Oh.
VM.
Okay. This is pointed to firewall now.
And in the firewall, you need to have the route for 172 series towards the VPN gateway.
Okay.
VPN
And what
gateway
else?
IP. Obviously, in the VPN, you need to have both the routes. One is like anyhow, one is for 172 series for the on-premises, and one is the VNet 2 series.
Okay. Now let's say, okay, that's okay. That's pretty good. What you saying it? You are saying it VPN gateway should point to the firewall, right?
Hmm.
And then firewall should reach out to this guy, and then this guy
Right.
should reach out to here, and then from there it should go to here, right?
Perfect. Yeah.
Now let's say,
But
Uh-huh.
1 minute, Sumit sir. So in my scenario, like from on-prem and this VPN gateway, we have the IPsec tunnel and we are running the BGP. And over the route server, we advertise this 10.1.0.0, this 10.2.0.0 subnet over the BGP. So the on-premise side, we got the route and the traffic. If anybody on-premise user want to go.
So for BGP, right, if
So
you're running that, this is what I was talking about for static routing. Okay? But if you're running that BGP here, right, you need to see what route you're advertising it here on the here and then in between both of them, because you're using a dynamic protocol here, right? what like
Yes.
what route you're advertising to your BCP, right? And that BCP, like how it's going to travel
Yes.
it there, what AS number you're providing it here, right? Many configuration need to see it for the BCP then. Right? You need to figure out what route you're expertising and then what route is going to be exposed inside that BCP, what AS number is going to communicate here. But simple way, the most efficient way I've seen it in my when I've seen that instead of going for the dynamic, because it makes sometimes it's complicated, right? And if you're going for that static route, it's always going to be simple. Like I can do it many things here. For the BCP, you need to see it many configuration, like what route you're expertising it there, what AS number you're going to use it there, what BCP state you're going to see it on both sides, right? Is it flapping or not, and all that stuff. Because BCP is one of the worst protocol in routing, right? But if you have that
Yeah, but
static,
in my infra,
Mhm.
this BGP
Mhm.
they are running. And
Yeah, so
something else heard about
Mhm.
this route server. If any issue happened, they saying this
route
route
server
not.
is okay. Let me tell you what route server is there. What happened with the route server on that Azure side? What happened with the route server? If this VM is sending the traffic to your VPN gateway, right? This VM is sending the traffic to the VPN gateway. This VPN gateway should be acting as a gateway, as a default gateway to them. And then this default gateway should route the traffic to your next thing, which is your on-prem. So while doing that, right? So first thing is with doing that hub VNet, I'll be getting one peering option. That peering option, I should be enabling that route server configuration. If I'll not be enabling the route server configuration on my VNet 2 or my either way, right? Then my traffic will not go it here, and from that it will go it here, but it will not go it from there. So that route servers, that's what I mean in terms of Azure networking, right? If I'm doing enabling that while doing that peering, you'll be getting that option. I'll be showing it to you. Don't worry. While I'm doing the settings of this architecture, that peering will come. So once you do that route server configuration, right? Let's say you're not doing it, then traffic will come out here on my VPN gateway, but VPN gateway will not be able to send it to that further because this is just acting as a default gateway, which is not sending the traffic to the next hop. But if you have the route server, now this VPN gateway will act as a route server for this VM or this VNet. It will take the traffic from here, right? And then also it will be capable of sending the traffic to the next hop. So the route server need to be placed. Route server need to be checked out when you're doing setting the infra for your VPN gateway in Azure. I hope this answered your question, Sujit. If you need that help on that BCP,
Yes.
you need to tell me that entire BCP configuration. And I think the networking guy who set up that, right, or even that firewall guy who set up that BCP, that will be more accurate to answer that. Okay. No
Yes,
worries.
yes. So like any so we have the this internal VSRX over the cloud. So like any on-premises user try to access any VM.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to allow the rule this over the Juniper VSRX. Then
Mm-hmm.
the user will be able to access. And if this any this uh, VM want to communicate to the internet or any, then we have the checkpoint firewall. So traffic,
Mm-hmm.
the internet traffic go as a checkpoint file, and the internal, like any on-premises user want to communicate with this one cloud, then we have the internal this Juniper VSRX virtual
Okay.
appliance in
Okay.
the this cloud.
Okay, okay. Now, okay, thanks for that, Suji. Now, if you think about that, you guys can take that picture of this one and you also try to set up that. And if you get any issues, feel free to reach out to me. Now, before that, before I'm going for the deployment, there are two things here. One more thing you need to see that because one of the person reached out to me and he said that I'm not able to deploy a public IP there, right? But if you look at there, how many public IP I need? I mean, how many IP this architecture will be needed to here, right? One public IP for my app gateway, one public IP for my Azure firewall, right? And I need to configure my VM workload also, right? So this public IP, I need also public IP here also. And I need to take that RDP access of this one, or I can take that Bastion also, but for that also, I need one public IP there. So there are total 4 public IPs needed. But the catch is here, if you're using a free trial account, you won't be able to spin out the 4 VMs IP, 4 public IP, 4 PIP. Right? So what I need to do, only maximum IP I can spit out with my free trial is 3. So what I'll do, I'll first spin out this workload VM, configure my application there, IS server configuration, right? And then I will also do that DNS configuration, DNS server configuration, so that it can host that xyz.com, right?
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, I missed that interesting traffic thing. Did you explain it? Can you explain?
No,
That
I'll be coming
interesting.
it there.
Uh,
On VPN side, right?
that
Yeah,
you missed it. Like if for interesting traffic to communicate, what steps is required? Like, you asked, right? So, what is the answer for that?
So the answer for that, you need to first do that VPN. You need to create a UDR and point out that UDR for that VPN subnet, which is there for your on-prem site, should go via VPN gateway. I mean, that person is going to the firewall, right? So you need to first send it to a firewall, and firewall send to the VPN gateway, and VPN gateway send it to there. But if you're
Okay.
having that VPN gateway, if you're directly sending to that VPN gateway, that is
Mhm.
also fine, because that answer, I mean, that was pretty most accurate answer which I received from that panel, which said like send it to firewall and firewall will send it to the VPN gateway.
So
But if I'm sending
UDR,
it,
only UDR is the answer, right? UDR.
yeah, UDR with that proper next hop gateway.
Okay.
Now, so for IP I need it here. So what I'm going to do here, I'll spin out this workload VM, right? Will public IP, will configure my IS server, and will configure my DNS server, right? And will host that domain as an xyz.com, right there on this workload, and then we'll release that public IP, release the public IP from here, right? Then we'll spin out app gateway with a public IP, right? And we'll do the configuration with this public IP. Now, so far only one public IP is there. This one I released it here. Now I'll spin out that Azure firewall and we'll create a new public IP, right? Create a new public IP and we'll have that policy in place. Now this release IP, which I have done it there, I'm going to attach it with this my VM, which is internal VM. Okay, now let's do that quickly. Let's go and do that. I hope this architecture is pretty much clear to you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. In the meantime, I'll go to my Azure architecture and then we'll start doing that project. And this is the real world scenario which I have it there, right? Now let's do one thing. Let's do one thing. Spin out one VNet. That VNet for my workload and application gateway. So what I'm going to do it here, going to spin out this VNet, VNet1. I'll name it as it is, right? I'll say it VNet1. And inside the VNet1, I'll spin out two subnet. One is for workload VM and one is for my app gateway. So I'll call it as a demo. Demo-rg. This will be my VNet1, which I just predicted in my architecture, VNet1. I'm doing it here manually. I'm doing it here on the portal, but when I was practicing it, right, when I was preparing this architecture, I did it all that diagram, all that architecture via PowerShell. I did it via PowerShell. And if I'll show you that PowerShell script, but I'm not telling you guys to do it. But yeah, you're always can explore more stuffs. Look at there, every endpoint, VM, traffic manager, VM configuration, right? VM subnets, interface, virtual network, application gateway. I did it via PowerShell. Export out that variables name here and then logged into my Azure account, created that namespace, created resource group, everything I did it via PowerShell. But just to show you here, I'm doing it via portal. So Central India is my location. Go it next. I'll call it as a 10.1. And I'll call it, I do not need 20/16. So I mean, even I do not this much also, but I'll split it here. And one is default. I'll create another one. I'll call it as a different second one. I'll call it as a app gateway. Okay, default to this is my app gateway subnet. Okay, and it will have that IP of 10.1.1. Just click it. So one is for my VM to host my workload. Second is to host my app gateway, which is my load balancer. Next, and let's just create. I seen one report, right? I mean, when I'm doing this architecture deployment, when I was like not there, I mean, previously also I've seen that deployment on that cloud is very easy. Deployment is pretty easy. But I seen one report which says every cloud, the public cloud basically, the public cloud which is there, right? They have the garbage of 27%. From 25 to 27%, they have the garbage. That's why the cost is also going to be also increasing it. So that's also one of the most important parameter you need to see into that, right? Cost optimization activity. Because if you're deploying that 100 resources in which 27 resources is not useful or it is not recommended for you, right? So every time you are able to save the cost for the customer up to 27%. So look for that, do that proper deployment and look for that what garbage you are having it in your cloud. If you're using a public cloud, you can save that. I've seen that report and that's what I'm saying it here. Now, VNet is created, come in settings, subnet. One is for my app gateway, one is for my default VM. Let's quickly go to VM creation for my workload. Which VM creation? This VM creation. VNet one is completed. This VM is I'm going to create it there and then I'll going to spin out my app gateway. So demo RG, I'll say it workload VM, place in Central India, right? I'll use known security concern and then we'll use we'll host there like IIS server there. Okay. Also allow the port 80 for my IIS server. Next, I'll use that premium and all that here stuff. Next, gonna use that default subnet and we'll have that public IP in place. Next, 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 and Debian create. In the meantime, I'll also create my traffic manager. Right, till the time VM is getting created, let's go and create the traffic manager. Very simple to create the traffic manager. Just provide the name and that's it. Traffic manager, what would be the name of my traffic manager? I'll say it like demo query and then it would be priority base. And then resource group is again there's a demo RG and then create that. Later on, I'll do more configuration, that endpoint and all that stuff. But for now, we are good. Let's go to app VM, the workload VM which we created. Take that RDP of this one. You guys are following me, right? What I'm doing it here? Please say yes or no. You guys are following me, right? What I'm doing so far.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so let's connect. Download the RDP file here. Open this one. Click on connect. Put the password. I'm connecting to my workload VM. So let's just IIS server to be installed and then we'll do the further steps. Now, in the meantime, okay, let's do that config here first. Is this to be loaded? Let this IIS server be to come up. Do one thing. And roles. Next. Very simple. I'm doing that just IIS configuration. We did it multiple times. Next. Install. In the meantime, this is installing. Let me just simply configure an HTML page. Desktop. And here I'll based on simple HTML code. This is a very simple HTML code which I've written down. Okay. Let's see. Returning. And I'll save this one in my C drive. And it dropped. Root index.html. Then save. Okay. Now what is that IP of your server? Private IP. Let's just see. Upload VM. Ten dot one dot zero dot four. Just wait the server to be configured. Okay, so my server is running. I just got this basic HTML page. Let's do one thing. Disconnect this one. Oh no, sorry. I also need to configure that as DNS server here. So let's just do the DNS server config also. Open that server manager and go in a tool. Okay. Rules and feature. This is still okay. Computer on rules. Okay, Amazon. Okay, if the DNS agent is ready. Okay, let's just wait this VM agent to be ready first. In the meantime, my traffic manager is also ready. I'll add that endpoint here. Let's just get that app gateway. Going to create one app gateway. Send the same demo RG. App gateway. Central India. I'll disable that auto scaling and I'll use that WAF tier 2. Right, minimum strand count as well. Again, I'll put it 1. I do not need too much zone replication, so I'll just put it in zone 3. HTTP also disable. WAF policy I need to create. Very simple. If I'll create it here, WAF policy, right? It will create one by default. I mean, there will be some rule sets are there, right? Which have that OS rule set, like OS rule set 3.1, 3.2. By default, you're going to get all these rule sets. These OS is an organization which basically works for all that attack to develop the signature for all that attack is happening, right? Like 0-day theft attack and all that attack. So this OS rule set, that OS organization update their rule set and release out that. So that's what they do that. So you're also going to get that OS rule set. And if you want to add that boot protection, like anyone is trying to do that automatically AI base or any bot rated like attack, you can check that and you'll get that boot protection as well. And I can modify that and I can add my custom route and all that. So I'll select that VNet and this time I'll select my app gateway. What will your front end? I'll use both. So I do not have any public IP for now, just one workload public IP, which I'm going to attach to other one, but I'll create that new one, app gateway PIP. Now, next, right? Value, what should be my private IP value? Let me open that in default duplicate page. I think it will be 10.2. Not sure, 0.5. Let me check that subnet then. Go in a VNet. Go in VNet 1. What is that subnet IP? So it's 10.1.1. 10.1.1.6. I'm using it here. Okay. So why I'm not using /2 or /3 here? Anyone can tell me? Why cannot use that /1/3?
It is
What?
already reserved first 3 IPs
Reserved for what?
for the
For
management
Azure,
use of the VM, subnet, VNet.
You're right, Rajesh, but not 3 IP. The
Five.
first 4 IP of subnet and last one IP. Right?
Total
Starting from
5, yeah.
0, total 5. 0, 1, 2, 3, right? And then last, which is the broadcast IP. They reserved it. So that is 5. I'll use it here. And then gateway. Let me add the backend pool. What will be the backend pool here? My app gateway. Sorry, my VM's private IP. So 10.1.0.4. This is what I have it here. Now, next, I'll add the routing rule here. Let me tell it RR here. Priority, we'll be putting it as in, let's say, 100 for now. Listener's name, I'll call it as a listener name. Listener 1. Fronted IP, I'll use it like I'll be taking the traffic on my public IP, right? So I'll use that public IP. Since I do not have that certificate and I have not generated the self-sign certificate, I'll take that on port 80, right? Now, put in a backend pool. I'll add one backend pool here, which I just created previously. Backend setting I need to edit here. Let me call it as a BS batting setting. And then what will be the request timeout, which means for serving your request from that front end, taking it to the listeners, and it's going to the backend. And our backend is going to reach out to your VM and see that in how many times it's going to respond. So for now, by default, it's 20, which is very less. I'll put it to 60 seconds, right? And then I'll add it here. Now add. Now go next, next, and create this one. Validation is passed. Click on create. Just wait this to be created.
Sumit, one thing meanwhile. So if my front end connection is in HTTPS and back end is HTTP, meaning from the outside it is HTTPS. I want to convert it to HTTP to the backend server, means kind of SSL offloading. What and all configuration you will do and where you will do?
Very easy, right? So from the front end, you're taking as an encrypted traffic, as an SSL there, right? And in a backend, you're not encrypting it. It's a halfway, not a full SSL encryption you're doing it, right? So for the front end, right, you need one certificate, right? So what you're going to do it here, in that listeners, right, which are listeners which are going to configure it there, on that listeners, you will be providing a certificate, right? Let me show
Okay.
you that if you're not getting it there. That's a very good question you asked. Yeah, that sometime organization do also. Let me just this deployment to be completed first, right? Then I'll show you manually where exactly you can do that.
Yes, yes.
In the meantime, let's see if my VM is ready so I can configure my TNS. Sometime it happens, right? If you see it there, like I was getting my VM agent was not ready. Don't get panic. It happens. VM takes some time to make it proper up. Your agent is to make it proper up. So wait for some time till the time finishing of that Azure underlying infrastructure is get completed. You will automatically get this resolved. So now I have that. Let's just move there. Add roles and feature there again. Let me. Next, next, next. Sorry, I need to want to add this domain services rule here. Then next, next.
So Sumit, suppose we want to create the front end like port number 514, some log we need to bulk log we need to send on the backend. So it is not possible.
I'm sorry, did not get your question, Suji. You want
No,
to create your front end on app gateway?
yeah, port number 514, some bulk
No.
log we need to send.
No, app gateway just for the inbound traffic that is happening only for 443 and 80. Nothing else. If you want to send that bulk traffic, bulk log, right, on that Azure environment, you can send it via directly. But if you want to implement the security, you can send it via your firewall. You're getting me, right?
Yeah, but we want the load balancing like
So the Azure use that
high
Azure
amount data is
network.
generating.
Yeah, they use that network load balancer, right? Not that
Mhm.
application gateway. There are other load balancer are there, right? In that case, use this load balancer.
Okay.
This network load balancer, right? So in this network load balancer, what you can do, let's say your actual port on which you're uploading the logs, right? For an example, like you said, 5464, right? That non-standardized port you're using it. So here for the front end, like for the front end, use the port for an example, use that port like, I'm just giving an example, use the port like 1234, right? From the front end for me, right? Because you do not want to expose that actual port to me, right? Use that 1234 port to me, and then using this load balancer, you can translate that port on that on that layer 4, you can transport that port 1, 2, 3, 4 to your actual port, like 5, 6, or 4, right? You have it, right? And then in the back end, let's say you have that virtual machine, you have your back log server and all that. Send that log on that actual port to the backend. So that in your case, let me find my pen very soon. So what I'm saying it here, this guy, let's say you wanted to send that your bulk logs, right? On that actual port of 5674 on which your backend server is running, on which your backend server takes that log, right? But I want that this port should not expose, this person should not know about this port here, right? Network load balancer you will be using here, right? Take that port here on 1, 2, 3, 4. Translate that port to your actual port, which is 5678. And in the backend on which your server, which is taking the logs, send the connection on this actual port to them. And then high availability are also going to reach it there, right?
Yeah, got it,
Let's
got
see.
it.
Okay. Now what happened? My app gateway is deployed. Okay, now before proceeding to that, so someone asked that how can I do that half termination? So what was the question here? You were seeing it here. This person from the internet, right? This person from the internet is reaching out to my app gateway, and this is encrypted. This is encrypted, right? Like currently we are doing non-encrypted end-to-end non-encrypted traffic, right? So what's saying halfway encrypted from here, which means traffic should come on HTTPS, and then backend traffic on which the person, on which my VM running, or Kubernetes or Logic app or function app or web app, whatever the stuff you're running it here, that should be unencrypted, which means HTTP, right? So what I needed to do it here I need to upload the certificate, that HTTPS certificate somewhere I need to upload it there, right? So what I can do it here on the listener, I can upload that HTTPS certificate. Just make sure one thing, that HTTPS certificate is always going to be in a PFX format, which means personal information exchange. May I know who asked this question? So personal information exchange. Who asked this question? Someone asked this question, right? May I know the name, please?
Yeah, this is Rajesh.
Hey Rajesh, yeah. So what happened? So while you will be uploading some certificate, right? That certificate is going to be uploaded on the listener. Okay. That listeners should always have that PFX format, right? Now, where it should be, you need, if you're running encrypted, end-to-end encrypted, right? Let's say this is also an HTTPS. What happened to my man? This is also an HTTPS. Now what happened? This, you also need one certificate also at the back end, which means two SSL handshake will be going to be happen. Two SSL handshake is going to be happen. One from this one to this one, which means front end from app gateway to the internet, and then other handshake is going to be happen app gateway to your backend VM, right? But now you're saying it, I want this half termination, which means HTTPS. So upload the certificate on the listener, but on the backend, right? You have that backend setting, right? You have the backend setting. If you want to put it for all encrypted, which means HTTPS from there to there, right? Upload the certificate in the backend setting, right? But now here you are uploading it like in a PFX. On the backend setting, upload in a .cer format if you want all to be encrypted. But if you do not want to be encrypted, do not upload the certificate in the backend. It's going to be unencrypted then. Got my
If
answer?
all to be encrypted, so I need to use the two certificates. You mean to
Two
say?
certificate. One certificate in two
different.
form. No, one certificate in two format. One is in PFX, one is in CER format.
Okay. Generally, organization will take the this one wildcard certificate. No, that would be sufficient, no, for this.
Right. Wildcard, they will take it if they have multiple URLs there, right? Multiple host name there. They'll take the wildcard certificate and they upload it there.
So
Okay,
in
got
that HTTPS full encryption traffic, in which what are the places that certificate will be terminated? App gateway and also in the VM, the actual.
Exactly. You need to have that, right? Because like certificate on that app gateway terms, which I'm saying it here, from the internet, it's also going to take the traffic, right? So you uploaded a certificate, so app gateway can represent that certificate. That certificate will be in a PFX format to the listener. This is halfway termination happened, right? Front end SSL termination. Now for the back end, let's say you want to all to be encrypted. Upload the certificate on the backend settings, right, of that app gateway in CR format, and the same certificate in .crt format in your virtual machine. Otherwise, how they are going to authenticate with each other, right?
Okay.
Like, but that's not your responsibility. This part is not your responsibility. This part, which I was talking about, is your responsibility. If you're running that, because we upload the certificate on the Kubernetes also, right? We just make sure that Kubernetes certificate gets uploaded, or we upload it on that other entity also, right? But here, you make sure that HTTP GES certificate which you are uploading it, the same certificate which you uploaded is in PFX format, upload in .in.cer format.
Yeah, thanks.
So you clear exactly what is different, what is CRT format and PFX?
No difference, right? What happened with that certificate which you created, right? When you ask for that CSR, so let me tell you that. So I'm taking every questions here. So when you request for that certificate, CSR, certificate signing request, right? When you give it to them, what your certificate provider like Vericheck and then other one, what they do, they provide you certificate, one certificate dot in CRT, they'll give you one CRT file, right? And they will give you one PEM file or key file. Okay. They will give you one PEM file or key file. And then along with that, they will, so these two files mainly they will get it here. So certificate will remain same. What happened? The application, that gateway which you're providing here, they have that capabilities to take that, or they take it in their own way, right? You are giving it to me in a certificate, but I'm saying it, hey, you have that certificate file, but my terminology is this app gateway will only accept this certificate format in .cer, which means certificate will remain same, and it's very easy to create that PFX format and .cer. Right? There's a tool called OpenSSL. You can use that OpenSSL, and from there you can create that certificate format. I mean, it's just like the firewall, what the firewall do, right? If you create the deep inspection and everything, right? You upload the certificate in CRT format, correct? But here my app gateway will take it in .cer format or .pfx in the front end. There is no difference. It's just the different format of we are creating it. Like that file, you create one PDF file, you create Word file, right? You create JSON file, like different formats file you create, right? HTML files and all that. So same thing is there with the CRT. So far we are good, right? Any questions, guys? If not, let's do one thing. Let's take a 10 minutes of pause only. It's 10:30. We are going to meet it at 10:40 back. Then we'll move further, right?
I think Sumit, we can take 15 minutes. 10:45.
Okay. Okay, let's just
Sorry.
meet at 10:45. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, guys. We'll meet it at 10:45 then. Thank you. So I'm just making this one as my domain controller, so I can host my one domain here. You don't have to worry about that, right? Because once you're done, you'll be getting sign out and then you need to re-log in it again, right? And this configuration, you are not going to do it here, right? That's not your rule. We'll restart, go back again and take that RDP and see that your VM is the upload VM. Trying to connect this one. Yeah. Connect. Now group policy is getting updated since I made that a domain controller and hosted one motiopshub.com there. Okay, till the time this is happening. Let me configure my app gateway till the time this is getting updated. So setting, configuration, web application firewall. I'll come back here, the policy which I associated, web policy, backend pool is there. Let me see my backend health. And my VM is up or not. Okay, so this is healthy. My VM is healthy now. Right. So if I'll do one thing, if I'll take this public IP, right, and I'll try to access it here from my that and see if this is coming it up or not. See, my web server is coming on that application gateway public IP. Okay. But I also want that. So this is good, right? The flow is good so far. My app gateway is able to reach out to my backend server, backend VM. Okay. Let this do still, this is still updating. Now, what is next? So app gateway is done. Like now I'm going to create one private DNS zone, but before that, and then this should be, this should let this to be done. Then I'll create that app gateway, one private DNS zone, Azure firewall, and then another VM so that traffic can from this to this divert via firewall. UDR also need to do it here. This update of the group policy will take some time in a while. Now, so far traffic is good, backend is also good. Now till the time this is happening, let's just go for the web policies. If I'll go in a WAF here, just simply type that WAF, web application firewall, and that is what WAF you have it there, right? This WAF policy you created, and it is associated to what? To what? It is associated to your app gateway. Which app gateway? That app gateway you created. You name it that app gateway. Now what will be that policy, right? Commit here. These are the OS rule set. It's a 3.2 OS rule set. All that rule is going to be analyzed here. And if you look at that application gateway, when I talked about what is the anomaly score, right? What is log parameter and all that. So you're going to get it. But all these rule is going to come in a picture. You can even create your own custom rules also. You can put that rule and put that varieties and values, all that, and you can create basis on your environment. You can have that OS rule and custom rule also. So that's the web application firewall. You can use that capability with the WAF, which I'm doing it here. Now, is it done? Still taking. Okay, now let's do one thing. Create that firewall, but let me create that firewall now. So what I'll do, I'll create one VNet first for my, this is going to be my firewall VNet. Okay, this is going to be my firewall VNet. Or let me create that VNet 2. What is that VNet 2? VNet 2 for this VM. I'm going to create that VNet 2 for this VM, and then I'm going to create the VNet 3 for my firewall VM. Okay, let's just go. So name of this VNet 2, next, and then I'll name it as a this VM. I'll call it as a what is my previous VNet subnet? This change. So it is 10.1.1. I'll call it 10.2.2. 10.2.0.0/16/24. All it calls it 24, and I'll only have one subnet which I'll be deploying it this VM, which means the VM2, the internal VM. I'm going to deploy it inside that. Okay, yes, next. So far good. It's again going to be in a central India. I'll put it in some reason because my free trial is having that limitation. Let this VNet to be deployed. Now another VNet I also need to have it there for my firewall. Which VNet? This one. The firewall VNet 3. Sorry, this VNet, the firewall VNet 3 for my Azure firewall. Okay, let's just do that. Firewall VNet 3. So far, VNet 1 is my app gateway and work VM load. VNet 2 for my internal VM, and this VNet 3. Okay. VNet 3. I can even select it from here. This is going to be configured some app gateway application, this firewall. If you're selecting it here, but I'll say it, I'll do it later on. Let me just enable, if I'll click it, enable firewall here. It will ask me what policies, what steps you want to do it here. Right? Everything it's going to ask it there. But I'll do it later on. Okay, let me show it properly from there, right? But this needs to be in a name of this Azure firewall VNet subnet. Okay, next. So our subnet is there. Next. Let me create that. So VNet 3 is also creating. This is done or still happening. Still trading. So VNet 3 is also creating. Okay, this is created. And I have one subnet for Azure Bastion. Okay, this firewall, Azure firewall subnet needs to be in the same name. Otherwise, you won't be able to create it there. And it should be at least /27. But I'm using /26, which means I'm good. Right? So firewall VNet subnet, let's just show and create the firewall. So firewall, create it here. Create new firewall. I'll again put it in the same resource group and I'll call it easy firewall. Central India. Next, and then what is filling it here? Okay, there are other option I need to provide it there. Firewall policy, is there any? No, I'll create one and I'll call it. So inside that firewall, I'm creating firewall policy. Firewall policy. Right? It will be standard premium basic. I'll put it basic. I'll call it standard premium. With the premium, I can do many more stuffs there. I'll use that VNet as an existing. Which VNet I want to use? VNet 3. And what is that? VNet 3 is there. Azure Firewall Management Subnet. I need to have this subnet here. Once again, let's go back and call that VNet 3.
Maybe rename the subnet based on our requirement so that you avoid confusion.
I'm sorry.
Maybe rename the VNets based on
Uh-huh.
our requirement to avoid confusion. So you know what is for each VNet. Maybe.
Okay, so you want me to change this VNet name, right?
Yeah, that's what, like, we would know
Okay.
exactly what, to avoid confusion, that's all, nothing otherwise.
Okay,
Based
so
on
let
our
me do one thing, right? Let me,
functional
so once this
Yeah,
VNet
that's
will
fine,
get,
that's fine. If you are okay, I mean,
yeah,
if that is
so
okay, then it's fine.
if you guys are getting
That's fine,
confused,
that's
I'll do
fine.
one thing. I'll do one thing. I'll just give you the screenshot in a chat also, right? So everybody can look at back. Yeah. I share that. So as it is the name which is I've given it here, I put it the same name, right? So let's go back there. So VNet is there. Now come back to the firewall. Creating my firewall here. Refresh it again. So with the premium, you also need to spin out that firewall management, which manages all your firewall. With that firewall, you have to have the policies. Okay, this is still updating or not done. Yeah, this is done. Let me see that if this is working or not, and that host name which I've given it there. DNS. Okay, so this FQDN is working. This FQDN is working for me. But what I'll do another steps there. I'm able to reach out to my server there. DNS, I'll create one record. This is the same thing which we are doing it for our external load server, right? I'll create one ename record, right? So I'll call it as a web server web, right? So it will be web.motivops.hop, and IP address will be that private IP address of my VM 10.1.0.4. Okay, add host. So this is I'm going to use in my DNS zone there. Okay, if I'll look at back, web dot, okay, things are good. FQDN is also resolving. Now I'm good to close this VM. I'm good to release the public IP of this VM. Disconnect the session. So I can come over the limitation which I can only use the 3 IPs there, right? So later on I'll delete that IP. So demo easy firewall, creating that firewall now. Or let's just use the standard one here and then use that. And then firewall policy, I'll call it one easy FW policy. Okay, then okay. User listing, virtual network, VNet 3. Now I need one more public IP for my VM, for my this firewall. The EC FW PIP. Okay, right. Now this will be management NIC. But if I'll select it, I'll need either public IP, but I'm not going to do it there now for now. Let's see. Click. So creating a firewall here. Now let's do one thing. I said I'll release that public IP of my virtual machine, and then we'll attach that public IP to my the other VM, which is this one. I'm going to release that public IP of this VM, right? So that I'll come with that. I have another public IP with me, and I'll attach this to my internal VM. Okay. So far what we have done. Let me just give you a guess here. Created traffic manager, configuration is needed. App gateway configuration, everything is got done. Work motion, like configuration, DNS server configuration, ADFS services configuration has been done, right? And then Azure firewall, I'm creating it. I'm going to create one private DNS zone now. Web policy, we already created it, right? I'm now going to spin out this VM. Going to spin out this VM first with this public IP, right?